Good morning and a very happy leap year, everybody. Oh, a special happy birthday to all the leap year babies out there. Coagulations. I knew nothing about leap year other than it happened every 4 years. Would you like to learn a little bit together? Apparently, this day in history is when women were known to propose to men. According to the Mirror.uk, the tradition of women proposing on Leap Day is thought to date back to 5th century Ireland, when St. Bridget complained to St. Patrick that women had to wait too long for suitors to propose. He then gave women a single day in a leap year to pop the question, the last day of the shortest month. Legend has it that Bridget then dropped to the knee and proposed to Patrick that instant, but he refused, kissing her on the cheek and offering a silk gown to soften the blow. Others believe the tradition originates from Scotland when Queen Margaret, then aged just 5, declared in the year 1288, that a woman could propose to any man she liked on February 29th. She ruled that men who refused the proposal would need to pay a fine in the form of a kiss, a dress, a pair of gloves, or a fine of £1. To give suitors fair warning and possibly a chance to escape, a woman was required to wear breeches or a scarlet petticoat on the day of the proposal. So if you saw her coming in scarlet, you either got really happy or you ran the other way. In Italy, legend has it that women are erratic during a leap year, and several proverbs warn against planning important life events during the year. Quote, Anno bissesto, anno funesto, which translates to leap year, doom year. Next, and something that has never crossed my mind, workers paid fixed annual or monthly salaries essentially work for free on February 29th because wages are not calculated to account for the extra day. And prisoners with sentences that cross leap day must serve an extra day unregistered. They always get you one way or another. But I say that's enough fun facts to fill your head. Today, I bring you the horror of the 9th floor. My name is Eli, and this is Murder in the Morning. My sources for today come from Murderpedia, the UK Mirror, Wikipedia, and the rest I will put down below. To be born on February 29th of the leap year is quite rare, and then to grow up and become a serial killer is probably even more rare. I don't have the stats, but it has happened. You've probably heard of the two more famous cases, both Richard Ramirez and Eileen Wuornos. They were both born on this day. But there was a third. Now, technically his birthday is March 1st, but many countries around the world use either February 28th or March 1st as the legal birthday of leap year babies. So we're just gonna count it, okay? And I apologize. I completely forgot to look up a couple of the pronunciations of words I will have to say way too many times. Bear with me. In the windswept Siberian city of Novokuznetsk during the 1990s, body parts began emerging from the river Aba, a small tributary that almost becomes a concrete waterslide as it flows through the town. The body parts were few and far between, and the underfunded police force of this industrial city did not have the means for evidence testing, let alone additional investigations. But the public felt weary. This was the first time in the town's history that human bones had been found in the river, and even worse, they appeared to be bones of a child. It wasn't until the summer of 1996 when, by chance alone, the whole story would come spilling out. One hot and humid day, a pipe burst in the walls of an apartment building. A plumber was called in to find a solution to said problem, and he narrowed the issue down to a single apartment. Unfortunately, the resident inside wouldn't allow access to his home. After multiple knocks and pleading efforts, the resident stopped responding entirely. And now a burst pipe isn't something to just ignore. The problem will get worse. And our plumber here called the police, not the manager for some reason, and waited for their arrival. Heads up, it gets pretty nasty here. According to the Evidence Locker podcast, police forced their way inside where the officers were met with the unmistakable smell of decay. What they found inside this apartment was the scene of torture and death. A headless and limbless torso in a bathtub, a human rib cage on the carpet in the living room, and then they found a seriously injured young woman who was barely alive. Olga Goltseva. She had gone missing nearly a month prior, along with 2 other girls who were nowhere to be seen in the apartment. Neither was the person responsible for such a mess. This place belonged to one Alexander, aka Sasha Spivitsev, a man previously convicted of murder and whom police believed was in the hands of a mental facility. Investigators were confused and checked in with the institution. They learned that Alexander was released 2 years before. As they try to take all this information in, Olga recounts her story to her mother and to authorities. Trigger warning here. Quote, she explained that on the 24th of September, the month prior, Alexander's mother, Lyudmila, asked her and her 2 friends to help carry her shopping bags to the apartment, to which they kindly agreed. As soon as they entered, Sasha attacked them with a knife. One of the girls, 15-year-old Nastya, retaliated and hit him pretty hard. He got angry and killed her immediately in front of the other girls. It was a traumatic thing to witness, but the worst was yet to come. Alexander kept Olga and the other girl, 13-year-old Xenia, chained up to the radiator for about a month. He taunted them, teased them, burned them, and of course he raped them. All the while, Nastya's body was decomposing next to them. Alexander gave them a hacksaw and ordered them to slice off pieces of her flesh and eat it. He disemboweled her in front of them and flushed her intestines down the toilet. Then, he decided it was time for Xenia to die. He set his dog on her, a large Doberman, who bit her in the neck, severing her trachea. Olga was the only survivor, and he forced her to then dismember Xenia's body. Alexander would use her flesh and bones to make a soup and forced Olga to eat it. According to Olga, Alexander's mother watched everything and never once tried to intervene or help the victims. End quote. Her confession blindsided investigators and was more than enough to issue an arrest warrant for both mother and son. Sadly, Olga passed away from her injuries less than a day later. Thankfully, those 2 evil people were not hard to find and immediately began confessing. According to the Evidence Locker podcast, Alexander Spivitsev, who kind of looks like a Russian Noel Miller with a mustache, was born on the 1st of March 1970 in Novokuznetsk, Siberia. The family called Alexander by his nickname Sasha, and he had one older sibling, a sister named Nadezhda. They lived in a Soviet-era 3-room flat apartment number 357 on the 9th floor of Pioneersky Prospect number 53. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Novokuznetsk was an industrial city with many social problems. Unemployed vagrants struggled to survive the unforgiving winters, while runaway children dotted the street corners begging for money. Most of these children preferred to be on the street rather than inside their house with abusive, alcoholic parents. Sasha's father was also an abusive alcoholic who cheated on his mother every chance he got. After 15 years of marriage, he left and they never saw him again. Among all the normal trauma, there was something strange about this family. Neighbors thought they were a rather unusual lot. They refused to take the elevator and opted to use the stairs every single time they went up and down from their 9th floor apartment. They always kept to themselves, never socialized or greeted any of the other neighbors. And times were tough in Novokuznetsk and the neighbors relied on each other, but not this family. They preferred to be alone. Alexander's mother was fascinated by criminal cases and often pored over photos of corpses and injured victims and then showed them to her son. Together, they studied the photos for hours on end, compiling their favorite photos in a scrapbook. Instead of reading storybooks, Sasha read criminal case files. He would later reflect that he had experienced a strange sensation when seeing these photos. He felt alive. He said it was similar to excitement, but different. He had a difficult time describing the exact feeling. In 1988, Sasha was 18 years old. Over the years, he had become rather preoccupied with murder. Dinner conversations centered entirely around circumstances and methods of various killings or tortures. His curiosity about the criminal case files his mother brought home had finally reached a fever pitch. Because of this internal conflict in him, always wondering what was right, what was wrong, the weird obsessions, what was evil, what was good, doctors finally insisted he be admitted to Novokunetsk's Hospital Number 12 for psychiatric observation. After his release, he went back home and his mother was concerned about her physically and mentally fragile son. It did not seem like he had a bright future ahead of him, and she realized he would probably be in her care for a long time. Sasha would go on daily walks with his dog, and one day he met a 17-year-old girl named Evgeny. At first, he tried to impress her and attempt a courtship at a romantic relationship. The couple would go on walks together. He gave her flowers and recited poetry to her, hoping that this relationship would lead to more and possibly marriage. But after dating for a short while, Sasha's true colors shined bright. A minor verbal argument turned into a full-blown physical assault. Evgeny came from an abusive home and was not going to tolerate this aggressive behavior and broke off the relationship immediately. Naturally, this infuriated the socially awkward Alexander. He didn't want to lose this girl, so he confined her before she could leave. He kept her hostage in the apartment at 53 Prospect, and Evgeny's parents did not realize what was happening for much too long. Eventually, her mother became concerned and went to the police. She did not know where Sasha lived, but knew for a fact that her daughter was with him. When police, accompanied by Evgeny's mother, located her at Alexander's apartment, he refused to open the door. Police forced their way inside and found a bruised and battered Evgeny on the sofa, barely alive. It was obvious that she had been tortured for weeks. Her whole body was covered with bruises, wounds, burns, and after they saved her from the apartment, she succumbed to her injuries in the hospital. The official cause of death was sepsis. Alexander was arrested, and as police walked him out of the apartment building, he shouted at his neighbors, blaming them for not calling the police sooner. Charged with her murder and sentenced to serve time at a psychiatric clinic, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. After his extremely early release in 1991, Sasha moved into the torture apartment and began doing the unthinkable. He started luring women into his apartment at first, brutally ending their lives. And I won't go into all the details of each victim. That would simply be too much, and you kind of got a feel for it already. After at least 2 victims, a neighboring apartment complained about a putrid smell coming from his place. But most officers treated those calls like noise complaints by not responding. Quote, Alexander later admitted that it became boring to kill only women, so he upped the ante and took children to his apartment. In the spring of that year, Alexander found six 12-year-old boys playing at a construction site near a department store. He offered them cigarettes and convinced them to help him burglarize an apartment. He didn't tell them that the apartment was his own home, and so he pretended to help them gain access to the building, led them to his flat, and this is his own account of what happened. Quote, we went all the way up into the apartment, and the last kid closed the door behind him. I suggested they go to the nearest bedroom, my bedroom. They became agitated, suspected something was wrong. One of them screamed. I took a knife that was lying on the table in the bedroom and hit him in the chest. The others began to scream too. Then I stabbed them, once in the chest, each of them. I realized that they had all died immediately. Then I moved them all to one side in my bedroom. I used a rag to cover them. They lay like this for 4 days. Then I carried them into the hallway. About a week later, my mother dropped by. I made her carry the bodies, and I went to sleep in the bedroom. In the morning when I woke up, there was nothing in the hallway. What mother did to them, I don't know. I didn't touch them." End quote. It's like he's leaving out his laundry, but they're dead children. What his mother did, she loaded the body parts, she dismembered these little boys, loaded their body parts into buckets, climbed down the 9 flights of stairs, walked to the banks of the Alba River, and dumped them out. After the bodies had been removed from the apartment, the process would begin all over again. He and his mother would lure a child or multiple children into his apartment and proceed to do the unimaginable. I honestly have no words for that. It's just gross. When they became too tired or the bodies started to pile up, they would start the cannibalization process, cooking up stews, soups, bones for the dog, or simply stuffing the freezer full. By the time of his trial, authorities could confirm he was responsible for at least 19 deaths, but the true count was most likely much higher. Alexander Sasha was only 26 years old when he was convicted of killing 19 people and ruled insane, destined to live out his life in a high-security psychiatric facility. His mother, on the other hand, only received a 15-year sentence and was released in 13. This betrayer of children, taker of limbs, and corpse eradicator was released back into the public. Naturally, everyone thought she got off easy, and currently there is now a dedicated social media page to tracking her every movement. So she's basically Taylor Swift. Quote, "So many questions remain. The exact number of his victims is unclear, but the bloodstained clothes found in the apartment indicated up to 80 people lost their lives in that apartment. The victims ranged in age from as young as 3 years old to an unidentified victim named Hope, who was about 40. In his hometown, he became somewhat of an urban legend, the boogeyman of Novokuznetsk, known as Cannibal Sasha, or as the international media sources dubbed him, the Siberian Ripper. After police processed the crime scene fully, apartment 357 was locked and no one ever lived there again. It's believed to be haunted, and anyone who has ever managed to get inside would attest to the dark energy of the place. Maintenance men who had to fix a broken window of the apartment all showered themselves right away and went straight to church after entering the 9th floor dungeon. One witness, a neighbor, needed psychiatric help after she was asked to walk through the flat, and she never recovered. Today, the apartment is inhabited by hordes of pigeons, and whispers in the hallway of 53 prospects say that these are the tormented souls of the victims who have not found peace." End quote. And that, my friends, is the story of the horror on the 9th floor. A chilling and gruesome tale of the worst kind, a cold reminder of the evil that lurks out there, taking form in sons, mothers, and others you'd least expect. I hope you all enjoyed today's story, nasty as it was. If you want to learn more, make sure to check out the Evidence Locker podcast episode on this guy. Thank you all once again from the bottom of my heart. Truly appreciate it. Stick around after the music for a brief and satisfying-esque true crime update. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. Love you. Hello again, guys. It's gonna be a quick one today. No long story, just a brief snippet from the world. Quote, "An Illinois judge who sparked outrage by reversing a man's rape conviction involving a 16-year-old girl has been removed from the bench after a judicial oversight body found that he circumvented the law and engaged in misconduct." The Illinois Court Commission removed Adams County Judge Robert Adrian from the bench on Friday after it held a 3-day hearing in Chicago in November on a complaint filed against him. Its decision says that Adrian engaged in multiple instances of misconduct and abused his position of power to indulge in his own sense of justice while circumventing the law. In October of 2021, Adrian had found then 18-year-old Drew Clinton of Taylor, Michigan, guilty of sexually assaulting a 16-year-old girl during a May 2021 graduation party. The State Inquiry Board filed a complaint against Adrian after the judge threw out Clinton's conviction in January of 2022, with the judge saying that the 148 days Clinton had spent in jail was punishment enough. No, it's not. He raped a girl. The complaint said Adrian had acknowledged he was supposed to impose the mandatory 4-year sentence against Clinton, but that he would not send him to prison. Quote, "That is not just," Adrian said. "I will not do that." Clinton was accused of sexually assaulting Cameron Vaughn. The Associated Press does not typically name people who were sexually assaulted when they're underage unless they come forward publicly. After Adrian threw out Clinton's conviction, Vaughn said that the judge told the court, "This is what happens when parents allow teenagers to drink alcohol and to swim in pools with their undergarments on." What a scumbag. Adrian's move sparked outrage in her hometown of Quincy, Illinois, and beyond, with the prosecutor in the case saying that her heart is, quote, "bleeding for the victim." Vaughn told the Chicago Tribune following Friday's decision to remove Adrian that she was very happy that the commission could see all the wrong and all the lies that he told the entire time. "I'm so unbelievably happy right now. He can't hurt anybody else, and he can't ruin anyone else's life." Unfortunately, Clinton, the rapist, cannot be tried again for the same crime under the Fifth Amendment, but a motion to expunge Clinton's record was officially denied in February of 2023. End quote. So again, sad to see that this predator rapist is basically just getting a slap on the wrist because of one white man's imposition to take it upon himself to play God. I mean, we see it all the time, but it's just friggin' frustrating. I'm glad he was removed from the bench. It's just so bothersome. I feel like he should take Clinton's place in the mandatory 4-year sentence. If you don't want to send the kid to jail, you go sit there for 4 years. Ugh. All right, folks. That is all I have for you today. I hope you have an exquisite leap year, and I will see you in 4 years. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. Love you.